Hi, hey, hello, welcome to my Q3 wrap-up. You're going to hear, well, just on cue, my upstairs neighbors, along with the whirl of the fan, because I tried to film some of this without a fan on, and it's Texas in September, and you would think, oh, that would be fall weather. No, not this close to the equator, it's not. So, I really did try to do it without the fan, and I can't. It's hot. It's hot. So, here we are. Q3 wrap-up. Wasn't, so far, not great. I'm 10 books behind my reading goal. And I have 3 months to make it up. And perhaps we'll have a cramming vlog. Perhaps I'll borrow a bunch of novellas from the library and read those to catch up. I don't know. But I gotta figure something out. So, if you're interested in the stats of all the books I read in this quarter, here's the stat page if future me gets it together. If not, we'll carry on to the books. I do have my handy dandy notebook that I may look down at just to gather my thoughts of the books I read, the synopses if I've forgotten them. So, the first one of June was a sequel, Ascension. This is the sequel to Evocation, and you follow David, Reese, and Moira. In the first one, David has like a curse on him, something's happening, he's like being possessed, and he goes to Reese, his ex-boyfriend and lover, to like figure stuff out. They're all like witchy, magical people, and he goes to him for help, but it gets a little complicated because Reese is married to Moira, and it becomes this whole like, when it comes to emotions, but they all work together to figure out the curse. A little bit of a spoiler, there's polyamory in book one. And it was delicious and exciting. So book one is about David and figuring out like David's turmoil. This one is Reese's turmoil, and I think book 3 will be Moira's. And book 4, I think is either David or Reese's sister, I can't remember. But I really liked it. There's not much to the plot. It's just like them going through like little tiny adventures in the magical world of, I believe, Boston. Or Cambridge? I feel like it's Boston. So there's that. Next, I read Sounds Like Love. Here's the thing. I love a contemporary romance with a wee bit of magic. However, this was a wee bit of a disappointment. And maybe that's because I was at first a fantasy girly and a fantasy romance girly before I migrated into really enjoying contemporary romance. And when you tell me that people can mind talk and mind connect, I'm like, yes, how exciting. It's like one of my favorite tropes. And yet I was disappointed. And I don't know if that's because I came up with the expectations of fantasy, that I was like, oh yes, I can't wait for you to use this mind connect. No, the mind connect was used very poorly, not poorly, very, very little. It was just like a little, like, I don't know. I liked the story. And honestly, I would have enjoyed them exploring more of the mind connect. It's literally about a songwriter and I want to say like a man who used to be in a band. I don't know. But they both have like a song, a tune, some words, a hymn, a hum in their minds, and they end up being drawn to one another through obviously certain events, and they come together and they want the songs like this earworm out of their head, so they come together to write said song, and that is their journey towards love. It was a good time. I was, like I said, disappointed. Next, we had Never Been Shipped. Fun fact, after reading this book, I realized that maybe I have a thing for musical romances, because I believe they're in a band. Yes, a band reunion may be enough to change two musicians' tunes on love in this electric romance. So, if I'm honest, I really don't remember much about this book, other than the fact, I'm gonna keep it real, they said nipple a little one too many times. It's basically like she was a little too young to be the star of the band. He never told her he loved her. Their second chance romance, they did date, and they ended up breaking up at the same time that the band broke up, and it's them working together again and like figuring things out and expressing love for one another. So I ate this up. It was a good time. I just felt like they said nipple too many times. Because I was just like, okay, I'll get it. I'll get it. Then we have Crash Test. This one shocked me because obviously it's Crash Test. And I was like, oh, so they're going to crash. It's going to be the third act conflict. They're going to really realize that they love one another. No. One of these is an F1 driver. The other one is an F2 driver. If you're not familiar with Formula One, there's obviously the different formulas on your way to traverse all the way up to the number one, which is F1. So you have F2, F3, F4. You have like the European circuit. You have, if you're a girly pop, you have the academy that is specially done to try to equalize like gender in the sport. Anyways, one of them is an F2 driver, and they're called like support races. So when you watch Formula One, a lot of times if you're at the circuit, or if you have a subscription to like F1 TV, you can watch the support races, which are often at the academy at certain times, or F2. They have shorter qualifyings and shorter run times, and they like honestly, they lay down the rubber for F1. But during an F2 race, there is a crash, and the first main character that we meet, he's the F1 driver, and he hears about the crash and is concerned about his lover, even though nobody knows it's his lover, because obviously they're dating in secret, because F1 is also a very conservative sport. So we start off with the actual crash. Within like the first 5 pages, you are fully aware that the F2 driver is in fact in the hospital in critical condition, and our F1 driver is stressed, to say the least. He's not out, the F2 driver's not out. It's a whole shebang. So the first part of the book, you follow our F1 driver through the journey of loving this person, also all the things that come with that. Part 2, or sector 2, because these sections are broken up into sectors, which is, if you're an F1 fan, it's the sectors of the racetrack. Anyways, sector 2 is about the F2 driver, and sector 3 is them together. And now you would imagine, by the way I just told you that they perhaps may not be together during or after the crash. And that would be correct. And it was just set up very differently, and I felt like this book was specifically more of a contemporary book that had more of a plot line to do with like learning to love yourself and finding yourself like worthy and important, and a subplot of romance. And I had a good time. I was a bit shocked. I was kind of annoyed at the beginning because I expected it to go differently, and that expectation was on me. But this was fun. I wouldn't say fun. Emotional. Yeah, for sure. And of course, I always want more screen time for people. And so that is probably my biggest disappointment of most romances, is there's never enough on-screen time of them happily together. So I think after that, let me check my records. Yes. What is it? Drive Me Crazy? Okay. This one I really liked because I enjoyed how she was involved with Formula One. She was an F3 driver, and she becomes a team principal for a team, and then is kind of shocked that the team signed her, like, it's like either like a previous lover or they're just a crush. I can't fully remember, but someone she was romantically interested in and invested in to be her second driver without telling her. And he doesn't know either till they sit down to the press conference, and it's like announced that like she's the team principal and he's the second driver, and they're both like in a little bit of shock and awe. And she used to be an F3 driver, and so that's how they know each other, is like they came up the ranks, except he obviously made it to F1 and she had to go the alternative route and become like a team principal. So I enjoyed her background in racing when it comes to this, because most of the time if you read a Formula One romance, the female main character, even if she's like involved in Formula One, she's never a race car driver, unless there are like, I think I can picture the book, it's purple, and I read it for my first F1 like episode. She's an academy driver, I believe, or she's an F1 driver, I can't remember, but like that, I've read that one and then this one, and then all the other ones I've read, they're just like in the space or whatever, but like they never are actually racers. And so I really enjoyed that. I do think it's quite unrealistic, the lack of him giving a rat's butt about finding out about this relationship. Like, the entire like premise is like they're sneaking around, but he feels very careless in it when it seems to be such a big deal that they could be dating, and yet he just seems to not care. As I also would imagine, like, you are aware that there are eyes on F1 drivers like at all times. Like, if you watch Formula 1, then you know they have so much content all the time because there is someone always, I feel like, filming, or there's always media days. And so in my mind, I'm just like, you feel careless, my man. It feels a wee bit careless, but whatever, you know. I think for the most part I had a good time. It was my first arc. Was it my first arc? No, it was like my first Formula 1 arc approved, because I was like, this is honestly I think my second arc that I've read. And I get so excited when it comes to our NetGalley, because I'm like, what do you mean, publishers, you're gonna let me read a book that's unpublished? Who am I? You know? But that concludes June. On to August, which I read 2 books. The Peak of Summer, and I read nothing. And I feel like that just shows how much summertime sadness really gets to my core. But one of the books I read, oh, I loved it. Backhanded compliments. This is my first tennis romance with some magical realism or like speculative fiction in it. They're soulmates. Oh, I ate this up. Ate it up. I ate it up. Okay. And I've always saw people see hurt comfort on tags with fanfics, and I don't think I ever understood it until I read this. And I'm like, oh, hurt comfort. I get it. Or I think I do. Maybe I'm wrong. So I guess correct me if I'm wrong. But anyways, you have these 2 girly pops. And I don't know who is who anymore. But one of them is very much into the idea of being soulmates. Is aware she has a soulmate. Is excited about the fact that she has a soulmate. Fully believes it's her tennis rival, but can't be for sure, and they play each other. And, well, they touch. Because in this world, if you have a soulmate and you touch, then the invisible ink becomes like black. And the other one is like, F a soulmate. Nobody's gonna tell me who I need and should love. You know what I mean? And so it's giving that. And they both like say things, but you can just feel the yearning. They want to be together. And they're fighting internal. Like, it's just so good. It's so good. And then the tennis in here was great. As a tennis player myself, when they're talking about the match and the points, like, I can see it in my head. And I'm like, yes. It was a good time. I loved it. I loved it. If someone knows a soulmate, like F1 romance, let me know. Because this was delicious. Or any more. You know what I mean? That as a not a former fantasy girl. As a girly pop who started off with fantasy. I love soulmates. I love it. Soulmate. I think it's the fanfic in me, honestly. Oh, this was so good. So good. Then I guess I already sold the other book I read. So I guess I'll just put the picture here. This one, I feel like I was really disappointed. I think I just wanted more from it overall. I think I really wanted more attention because to me it was very obvious from the get-go of one character being flustered because they find the other one. Are you focused on me? Okay. I really hope I'm not out of focus on the other slides. I guess we're gonna find out shortly. Anyways, I think I was just overall disappointed. Like, I don't really remember much other than I wanted more push and pull, more like resisting one another. Like, these 2 characters were in this magical world and where humans live. It's kind of like D&D. They live in a real-time D&D game. And there are moments where they have to be in the lab because they're working on a project. They both got like the same grant, and they're enemies to lovers. They don't like each other. They work in, it's kind of like they go to the same school. The human can't stand this half elf. This half elf can't stand this human. And they're in this lab and there's just like tension. And I just wanted there to be more tension and more like almost oopsies to like build it. But I just feel like there was like a tension filled moment. And then we just like fall into them like realizing that they care for one another. And I think I will take a romance that is anywhere between like 450 to like 550 pages, if you're gonna give me like the full build up, the full tension, the full yearning, the full like, won't they, will they of it all, you know? And it just all moved a little too quickly, which, I mean, it's a romance and this is how it goes, but I did want more. I think there's some trauma I want to discuss a little bit more, because sometimes I don't like when I am told all this trauma in these people's brains and yet it's never like actually communicated. We break up in the third act instead of actually like, how about having a moment where it's tough and we discuss like, okay, I miscommunicated and this is, I'm realizing that like my past wounds have like manifested in this way. Give me more of that and stop breaking them up, or just having huge miscommunications that are unrealistic, because I'm just like, okay, I don't know, I just feel like it was a letdown. And then in September, here's the thing, I'm going to tell you what I've read currently in September, and I may put this shirt on again and come back because I am filming this on the 17th. And I don't think I'm done reading for the month, because I did just get a new book that I plan on reading and another book. So I may circle back in an entirely different outfit for September to keep you updated, because I am moving my sister at the end of the month. So I don't think I'll be reading. However, I will be reading more before in the next like week, you know? Allow for the, what is it called? Discrepancy in the imagery and the outfits and like honestly the energy and the vibe. What have I read this month? I have read, also since it's not fully in my planner yet, I got my handy dandy Storygraph app to let you know the order in which I read these. So I just reread To Kiss the Villain. I've read this, I don't know how, this is honestly like my third reread, but I wanted to annotate it and like circle and point out the different parts of how this book connects to the like Legacy of God series, but also connects to the hockey romance for Beautiful Venom, and just see how this one like interplays. So I reread it and annotated it because it was republished and came out in August. So I finished that literally the 1st of September. Party rock. Then what did I read next? Oh, I read Saving the Rain. I picked this up because TikTok gets me when they provide excerpts in the audiobooks, and that's it. And just people being like, it gets me. That advertisement, if it is, sold. This one had Teddy Hamilton as a narrator and somebody else. And Teddy Hamilton, obviously, did his job beautifully. Got me, sold me. I was here for it. However, I knew nothing of this book. And what I learned through reading this book is that I'm not super into step siblings. I'm not. And I feel like I thought I could be because I watched like No Fault London, right? And their step siblings, they make it known like once, and then like you kind of are aware that they're step siblings because they're like in the house together and like whatnot, and you're like, ah yes, siblings, not just like two people living in a house together. But that's like the only time, right? And they don't really ever bring it up again. This one brings it up all the time, and I'm sure some people really into that. Me, not so much. Also, on top of the like step sibling kink slash trope, the second narrator, sure, I could handle him. It was like whatever. But during the intimate scenes, the spicy scenes, the way he made Teddy Hamilton's character sound killed the vibe. I said, I know, is this what you think a man would sound like? It sounds like a whiny child. Ew. Anyways, to say the least, I learned something new about myself in that journey. Then, God of War. Okay, hear me out. I was in a slump, still kind of am. Actually, I might be coming out of it. I was in a slump and I said, you know what? You know what? Sometimes you just need, not to say that Rena Kent's writing is trashy, but you know the vibe. You just want something that's ridiculous and silly, and that you know for a fact is just gonna be ridiculous and silly going into it. And I feel like that's what it is for like the Legacy of Gods. Because I've read, I think honestly at this point, I might as well just finish the series, because I think the only one I have not read, let's see, I think the only one I haven't read, oh no, I haven't read two of them. I have not read God of Malice or God of Pain. Because I've read God of Wrath, God of Ruin, God of Fury, God of War. Isn't Pain, who is this one about? Let's see, pause, a little bit of intermission for my ADHD brain. Annika and Craig. Is Pain? Why did I think that was Malice? Who's Malice? Killian Carson. Oh. Okay. Well, maybe. But see, they're not duets. And that's why I haven't read them. Because, which honestly, although I did read, I don't think God of Wrath is not a duet. And so it's kind of rough. So maybe I won't finish the, what do you call a book with a series with 6 books? Anyways, so I said, F it, it's a duet. And I just want something, you know, to scratch the itch. And it scratched the itch. It's so far the only one that I've read that does not at any point talk about initiation. And maybe that's because they're like graduated and like living their grown-up lives. But every of the other books, always initiation is like a centering, an anchor in the plot line. So I've read these all out of order. I read 5, then I read 3, then I read 4, then I read 6. So yeah, I was just here. It scratched the itch. I was intrigued. And then we got to the end and I said, but then I was like, girl, you knew going into it. And so I let it be. You know, sometimes you just gotta let it be. What did I read after that? I read Love is a War Song. Who is a pop star who F's up. And she has to go to her grandma's ranch on the reservation. And she meets a handyman who don't like her. And then, of course, their love commences. The banter was good. If they had kept up the banter for longer, if they hadn't gotten together so quickly in the story, probably would have made this book better. What really killed me for this book to be annoying and like eye-rolly is one, you cannot convince me that she is competent enough to be a musician and an actress. Okay, this is gonna be a spoiler. You learn, this is like in the first like 10 pages, so is it a spoiler? But this is an Indigenous romance by an Indigenous author, right? And you're gonna tell me that this girly pop, whose mother was raised on the reservation, who apparently is enrolled also with the tribe, is unaware that her putting on a headdress might cause an issue. Her parading around in Indigenous clothing that she has apparently zero knowledge about might not cause a stir. And now, I don't know, I'm not Indigenous. I'm just like, I'm thinking that if you live on the reservation, I feel like maybe you would know not to wear like a warrior's headdress. Like, you know? And I'm like, but you don't know? Like, I get the mom not knowing that, like, not having her daughter, like, quote unquote, enrolled. People would want that proof that in this world that we live in, that, like, you can't just say you're Indigenous and people believe you, especially if you don't behave in a way people assume. And so maybe I'm being the ass and assuming that she should know not to wear a warrior's headdress, seeing as she's Indigenous and her mother lived on the reservation. And so maybe I'm the ass. But I'm just like, what? So they'd wear that. And then so she has this major fallout. And her mom's like, you should go into hiding. Go live on the res. And he's like, I'll teach you how to be Indian. Which he doesn't. And he doesn't really do much. Not like, I mean, I thought, how are you going to even do that? Because she like whistles at night. And is like wandering around night. And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just thought it was so funny because I loved that interaction. So I was like, yeah. And then like she was so incompetent the whole time. Anyways, it wasn't the worst of times. I've read worse. But it wasn't great. After that, I think Plus Size Player. Okay. I was in kind of a pissy mood when I picked this up. So I soft DNF'd it at the first like chapter. And then I was like, get it together. We're gonna force myself to get out of a reading slump. And I continued to read this one. And I got frustrated halfway through it and I said, I need a dance break. So I took a dance break and then I ate up the second half of this book. Okay. This is a good time. You have these two people. She doesn't like to have all of her eggs in one basket. So she's out here dating. She's a content creator of sorts, so she's got her hand and a bunch of pots, you know, to make sure that she's financially stable. She, you know, she's looking out for herself, and she doesn't think she'll ever find like one man. So she's got like a funny man, a smart man, a fun man, a romantic man. And the fun man is like, no girl, it's just me and you, babes. It was a good time. I think I said in one vlog that it was like maybe a little too much spice, and I think I take that back. Honestly, this is the precise amount of spice and smut I want in a book. I just like wasn't in a good mood the first half of the book, so I take it back. This is yummy, delicious. If you're gonna start off hot and heavy, this is how I want you to start off, okay? I loved how much he loved her. You could just tell that man wanted her from like page 1. No ifs, ands, or buts. This man wanted her and was down bad. And I really enjoyed that. I really did. I was yelling at the book in the sense of like, why, like they're essentially, you know how it goes. They have to break up. And so in their kind of like breakup stage, I was just screaming because there's such a very obvious answer to the issue. A very obvious one. A very obvious one. And I was like, get it together. You're gonna tell me that these are your jobs and you can't figure this out? I'm realizing I don't like incompetence. Actually, now that I just said it out loud, I don't think I like incompetence. I don't think I like it. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because I was like, oh, please. You're telling me you can't contact some lawyers? You can't have paperwork drawn up? Okay. Other than that, it was lovely. This doesn't have an epilogue, which maybe there are a lot of romances that don't have epilogues, but I haven't read a romance that doesn't have an epilogue in like ever. Honestly, enjoyed it because the last chapter was the last chapter. Boom, bada bing. And I wasn't mad at it. Their like third act conflict or whatever made sense. It did. I thought it was gonna go one way, it went another way, and I enjoyed it. There was a moment, the only thing that I'm like a little bit of a plot hole is they make a big deal at one point where the condom breaks. She has an IUD. They go pick up emergency contraceptive, but you learn how much she weighs, and I just want to be like, are you aware that that emergency contraceptive would have done nothing because it has a weight limit of 160 on it? But then they have sex again without a condom and no one seems bothered. So it's like, why the big to-do of it all to pick up emergency contraceptive that wasn't going to work to then just continuously fuck without a condom, and or have a discussion about like, oops, we got caught up in the moment and didn't use a condom. Should we continue not using condoms? Or was that just like an oopsie and I need to make sure I'm stocked? And that wasn't ever a conversation. I was just like, oh, so we're just, don't bring up that kind of convo and never follow through. I'm like, oh, follow through. What are the new boundaries? What are the boundaries discussed? What is this, you know, health and safety for one another? Where's that discussion? I still enjoyed it though. Ate it up. I was screaming. It was good. I think I want to pick up book 1 and the future book 3. Now, off to future me if I've read any other books. All right, we're back. Oh, my battery. Now we're really back. Okay, the follow-up. Here are the only other books that I read the rest of this month. Love in the Time of Serial Killers. Okay, you have her, obsessed with true crime. She's doing a dissertation on true crime, and she comes in contact with like a neighbor, and she assumes for a long time that he's gonna murder her, that he has serial killer vibes. So that was an interesting plot. It kind of hooked me for a little bit. I soft enough. I picked it back up because the audiobook was due soon, and I feel like I can typically deal with like a very neurodivergent, insecure, like in her head type of girly, but she was driving me up a wall. I can't fully remember why, but she just was. She was pissing me off the whole time. And then him didn't even make sense because he was like, I know all these things about you, but it's like, I never saw them. How do I know that you know these things? Because when did you learn these things about her? Because you guys are not together at any point. And they really pissed me off because she was like, I can't say anything. I don't know how to say anything. and yet she's writing a dissertation, and I know academic skill does not translate to emotional skill, but I just thought if you could write a dissertation about serial killers, you can't write him a note about your feelings. So I couldn't stand this book. I was so happy when it was done. Then I read one of my anticipated books for September, To Clutch a Razor. This is book 2 to When Among Crows, which takes a fella named, I called him Demeter, but I think it's like Dimitri. It's, I don't know, I guess you could imagine like the Polish way to say Demeter, Demetrix. Anyways, he's from a family of knights, and in the first book, he is going to find somebody because he has the cure to like her ailing sickness that he's aware of. And so in the first book, he finds her and they kind of go on a journey, and through that journey, they meet somebody named Nico. And what's the girl's name? I'll call her Al. I think it's Al. Al's the girl that he's like, I know how to make sure that you live. And then they pick up Nico along the way, and they go on a journey to Baba Yaga. And then this book picks up right after they leave Baba Yaga, and he is tasked with another thing in order to earn back something that Baba Yaga took from him. And this all takes place in Chicago, by the way. And oh man, was this full of like, I was tense the whole time because I was like, no, I'm stressed. But it was so good. Again, like last time, I was like, I need 100 pages more. I need a whole novel, Veronica. Give it to me, because also like, and then the little breadcrumbs of like Nico and Dimitri, like, oh, I just need more. I just need more. And I loved it so much. Like, I was so nervous going in because I was like, what if I hate it? And then I was like so much tension because I was like, this is not gonna be good. This is not gonna be good. This is not being good. And Baba Yaga does what Baba Yaga does. And I was like, oh, but it was so good. That's all I can say. It's like, it was so good. It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. Ah, I live to find the way this one and When Among Crows has made me feel. Please. Lastly, I read Elegy for the Undead. Now hear me out. I picked this up because I saw a while ago, like Books and Lala read it, and for some reason the plot intrigued me, even though I'm not a horror girly. Yeah, not in the midst. And I don't really like, I'm just not a horror girly. And I guess this is technically horror because it takes place during a zombie apocalypse. And if I'm honest, it's probably the first type of pandemic book I've read like ever. Even though they turn into zombies, which I feel like is any other time, because I feel like a zombie movie always happens with a pandemic. But I've never actually read anything with zombies in it. So I guess here we are. And you meet Jude and Lyle. And you kind of follow their love story pre-zombie apocalypse, during the zombie apocalypse, and after the zombie apocalypse. And it's very sad in certain parts. And I really thought I could read this because I was like, oh, surely, like, I had forgotten the plot. I knew it was a zombie apocalypse and it was about 2 guys in love. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I didn't read the back. And so I knew it was going to be sad. However, I just rolled with the punches and I sobbed this morning. My eyes actually hurt. I was just unprepared. I was like, can you see the dog tags? Dog ears. It was a short little novella. It's narrated by different people, so you get, it's not like a duet, but it's just 2 different narrators, and I really feel like that was like a nice compliment to this novella. Oof, it hurt my feelings, but I'm glad I read it. So that concludes the just in time for the AC to kick on. I have 10 minutes in between each AC. Anyways, that concludes my Q3 wrap up. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, live your best life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.